Welcome to our channel, your gateway to the most spine-chilling tales and unnerving true stories. Today, we present a true story, The Mysterious Stranger, a true horror story. Whispering Willows, a quaint town nestled in the embrace of nature's serenity, woke up to the tender whispers of a crisp autumn morning. The sun painted the horizon with strokes of gold, as the first leaves of the season gently kissed the dew-laden cobblestone streets. The townsfolk, accustomed to the rhythmic dance of the seasons, went about their day, unaware of the shadow that had just entered their lives. In the morning, Emma, a young librarian with a penchant for adventure novels, is seen packing her bag for a week-long staycation. She's decided to escape the mundane and explore the hidden nooks and crannies of her own town. With a sprightly smile, she locks the door to her charming Victorian-style cottage, a place she calls home, and heads out into the morning light. The room is filled with the warm embrace of the sun, casting long shadows from the tall, arching bookshelves that line the walls. A gentle breeze whispers through the partially open windows, carrying the scent of freshly baked bread from the neighboring bakery. The furniture is antique yet comfortable, a testament to the town's rich history and Emma's love for the vintage. Emma steps out onto her porch, her breath misting in the cool air. She pauses, her hand hovering over the railing, as she notices a figure standing at the end of her walkway. A man, tall and lanky, with disheveled hair and a tattered overcoat, stares at her house with an intensity that sends a shiver down her spine. He turns as she approaches, revealing a gaunt face with piercing eyes that seem to hold a desperate secret. Emma says, "Can I help you?" Strange man voice, "I'm looking for a place to stay. My car broke down on the highway. Do you know anywhere around here that could help me out?" Emma, ever the good Samaritan, invites the man inside, offering him a cup of tea while she calls the local mechanic. The man, who introduces himself as Alex, seems both grateful and unsettlingly eager. His eyes dart around the room, as if searching for something specific. The conversation is stilted, his story of the broken-down car on the outskirts of town feeling rehearsed, the edges of truth frayed with each retelling. As the kettle sings its sweet melody, Emma's curiosity gets the better of her. She sneaks a peek into Alex's pocket, finding a small, metallic device. Before she can examine it further, Alex appears behind her, his gaze sharp and predatory. She quickly retreats, handing him the tea with a forced smile, heart racing. The tension in the room is palpable. Alex sips his tea, watching Emma with a hunger that goes beyond physical need. He tells her about his journey, the words weaving a tale of loss and desperation that seems to echo through the very fabric of the house. Emma listens, torn between pity and fear, as the device in her pocket feels heavier with each passing moment. The mechanic arrives, and Emma escorts Alex out, her eyes never leaving the device. She waves him off, relieved to see the back of him. As his figure diminishes into the distance, she can't shake the feeling that something is amiss. The quiet town seems to hold its breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. With a sigh of relief, Emma locks the door and returns to the safety of her sanctuary. The house feels different, the air charged with an energy that wasn't there before. She decides to take a stroll around town to clear her head, pocketing the device for later examination. Detective Sam Harris, a seasoned veteran with a no-nonsense demeanor, sits at his cluttered desk, going over reports of recent strange occurrences. His gut tells him there's more to these events than meets the eye. He's seen the quiet townsfolk rattled before, but there's a pattern here that's growing too familiar for comfort. The evening descends, casting long shadows across the room. Emma returns from her walk, feeling a sense of unease that clings to her like a second skin. She decides to unwind with a hot bath, the warm water soothing her taut muscles. As she soaks, she hears a faint sound from the living room. She wraps a towel around herself and tiptoes out to investigate, only to find the window shattered and Alex standing in the moonlit frame, his eyes wild with an unspoken intent. Emma, panicking, says, "What are you doing here?" Alex says, "I need you to come with me, Emma. Now." Emma backs away, her eyes darting for an escape route. Alex lunges forward, and she screams, her voice piercing the stillness of the night. Suddenly, a figure bursts through the door, knocking Alex to the ground. It's her neighbor, Mr. Thompson, a burly man with a protective streak a mile wide. He's brandishing a baseball bat, his face etched with concern and fear for Emma's safety. Thompson says, "Are you okay, Emma?" Emma says, "Yes, thank you." The police arrive, led by Detective Harris. They apprehend Alex, who seems eerily calm amidst the chaos. As the officers lead him away, Emma finds the courage to examine the device. It's unlike anything she's ever seen, alien and cold to the touch. The night has taken a turn for the surreal, and she can't help but feel like she's stepped into one of the thrillers she so often reads. With the house secured and a sense of normalcy restored, Emma and Detective Harris sit by the fireplace, the flames casting flickering shadows across their faces. He asks her about the device, his curiosity piqued by the unusual object. Emma hands it over, and he examines it with a furrowed brow, recognizing it from similar incidents that have been plaguing the town for weeks. Detective Harris says this doesn't belong here. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. Emma, shivering, says, what does it do? Alex sits in the starkly lit room, his eyes never leaving the two-way mirror. Detective Harris enters, the device clutched in his hand, his expression a mask of professional skepticism. Alex smirks, revealing a glint of madness in his gaze. The interrogation begins, a dance of words and shadows, each trying to outwit the other. Emma, unable to shake the fear, decides to search the house. As she moves through the shadowy corridors, she discovers another device hidden behind a bookshelf. Her heart racing, she realizes that Alex wasn't the only one who had been watching her. The house feels like a prison, and she's the unsuspecting inmate. Detective Harris presses Alex for answers, but the man remains frustratingly elusive. His cryptic responses hint at a larger plot, something that's been festering beneath the surface of Whispering Willows for much longer than anyone could have imagined. Emma calls the detective, her voice shaking as she describes her discovery. His eyes widen, and he ends the call, promising to send someone over immediately. She sits, trembling, in the center of the room, surrounded by the silent sentinels of her book collection, feeling more isolated than ever before. The episode culminates with the arrival of a uniformed officer, who takes the device for further analysis. As the police swarm her house, Emma is left with more questions than answers. What is the purpose of these devices? Why was she targeted? And what secrets does her quiet town hold? The night deepens, and Emma lies in bed, the comfort of her blankets providing little solace. Her eyes drift to the ceiling, where a solitary tear traces a path down her cheek. She whispers to herself, a vow to uncover the truth, even if it means delving into the shadows that have cast their long, dark fingers over Whispering Willows. The sun had barely risen over the tranquil town of Whispering Willows when the first murmurs of the disturbing events of the previous night began to spread like wildfire. The quietude that once nestled comfortably in every corner was now replaced by a palpable sense of unease, a feeling that something malevolent had found its way into their once peaceful lives. The local coffee shop, usually bustling with the early morning banter of regulars, was instead a hushed cacophony of whispers and furtive glances. The topic of the day, the mysterious man who had invaded the personal space of several residents, was on everyone's mind. Emma, the unsuspecting protagonist of this unfolding horror story, sat in Rachel's cozy living room, her eyes glued to the local news. The reporter spoke in hushed tones about the Whispering Willows watcher, displaying a grainy image of the man caught on a security camera. His hollow eyes bore into the screen, and Emma felt a cold shiver run down her spine, recognizing the same look that had sent her heart racing just hours ago. Rachel, her best friend since childhood, sat beside her, an arm around her shoulders, offering comfort and strength. The doorbell chimed, and Rachel jumped, the warm embrace tightening for a brief moment. It was Detective Sam Harris, a stoic figure whose sharp gaze and furrowed brow had become a familiar sight around town. He stepped into the room, his shoes squeaking slightly on the freshly mopped floor. "Morning, ladies," he greeted, his voice gruff but kind. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but we need to talk." Emma filled him in on the events of the previous night, her voice trembling slightly as she recounted the attempted abduction. Sam nodded gravely, scribbling notes into a leather-bound notebook. "We've had reports of this watcher for weeks now," he revealed. "But until last night, it was all just creepy. Now it's escalated." The detective's words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of unspoken fear. He pulled out a few printed pages, handing them to Emma. "Take a look at this," he said. "This is his mo." The pages were a chronicle of the watcher's eerie past, a history of peering through windows, of silent stalking, and of leaving behind only the echoes of his presence. Victims spoke of feeling watched, of a sense of violation so profound it made their skin crawl. The man's name was Marcus Reed, and his history was as chilling as the early morning air that seeped through the cracks in Rachel's windows. Days turned into nights, and nights into days, As Rachel and Emma pored over the online forum, reading the testimonies of those who had encountered Marcus. Each story was more disturbing than the last, detailing his meticulous and methodical behavior. Rachel's fingers danced over the keyboard, her eyes scanning the screen for any clue that might lead them to an understanding of what he wanted. "Look at this," she said, her voice a mix of excitement and horror. Someone posted a photo of him. Emma leaned over to look. The man in the picture matched the one from the news. Long, greasy hair, a scraggly beard, and a look of intense focus that seemed to burn through the screen. "He's everywhere," Rachel murmured, scrolling through more posts. Detective Harris' investigation led him to a motel on the outskirts of town, where Marcus had been staying. The room was a shrine to his obsessions, the walls plastered with newspaper clippings and photos of his victims, their faces circled in a manic frenzy. It was clear that Emma had been his latest target, and Rachel's house had been his next destination. As the investigation deepened, Rachel's house grew into a fortress of fear. They installed extra locks, set up cameras, and even bought a dog, a fiercely loyal golden retriever named Toby. But despite the newfound sense of security, the feeling of being watched lingered, like a ghostly presence in the shadows. One evening, as Rachel was preparing dinner, she heard a faint scraping sound from the living room. She froze, her heart hammering in her chest. Toby's low growl echoed her fear. She tiptoed closer, her eyes scanning the room for any sign of an intrusion. The scraping grew louder, and she realized it was coming from her laptop, which sat open on the coffee table. Her breath caught in her throat as she saw the screen. A new message had appeared, the cursor blinking ominously. "I know what you know." Panic flooded Rachel's veins, and she screamed for Emma, who rushed in from the kitchen, a knife in hand. They stared at the message, unable to comprehend what it meant. Rachel's hands trembled as she closed the laptop, as if shutting it would somehow banish the terror that had just entered their sanctuary. The detective arrived shortly after, his face a mask of determination. He took the laptop, promising to have it analyzed by the tech department. As the night grew darker, Rachel and Emma felt the walls closing in, the weight of being watched pressing down upon them. The following day, Rachel's house was a flurry of activity. The local news had picked up the story, and now the quiet street was lined with satellite trucks and reporters. The town, once a bastion of tranquility, was now a hub of anxiety and speculation. Rachel's front lawn was a minefield of microphones and cameras, eager to capture any snippet of information that could be spun into a sensational headline. In the midst of this chaos, the doorbell rang, and Rachel cautiously approached the door. A young man in a postal service uniform held a large, unmarked package. "Delivery for Miss Rachel Thompson," he said, handing it over with a forced smile. Rachel signed for it, her stomach churning with dread. Inside the package, they found a meticulously crafted dollhouse, a replica of Rachel's home. Each room was filled with miniature figures, eerily similar to Rachel, Emma, and even Toby. The bedroom windows were open, with tiny handprints on the glass. The living room had a minuscule laptop with the same message on the screen. "I know what you know." The sun had barely risen over the sleepy town of Whispering Willows, casting a soft glow on the quiet streets. Detective Sam Harris sat in his office at the local police station, a steaming cup of coffee in one hand and a stack of case files in the other. The previous night had been restless, filled with the echoes of Emma's terrified screams and the relentless clatter of his keyboard as he combed through digital archives for clues. The town had been plagued by a series of unexplained events, and the pressure was on to find the man known only as the Watcher before he struck again. Emma's eyes fluttered open in Rachel's guest room, the lingering fear of the previous evening's events painted on her face. Rachel had been her rock, her sanctuary, and she was eternally grateful. They'd spent the night piecing together what they knew about the man who'd invaded their lives. The digital breadcrumbs they'd found had led them to the dark, murky waters of the internet's underbelly, a place where secrets were bought and sold like commodities. The hidden device in her living room was not just a random act of voyeurism. It was a gateway to a world where privacy had a price tag. At the station, Sam and his partner, Officer Martinez, studied the footage from the stolen devices. They'd traced the IP addresses to a local network, and the trail grew colder. It was a town where everyone knew everyone else's business, but this was something different, something darker. They decided to pay a visit to a local tech store. The Crypt, known for its shady transactions and knowledge of the digital underground. Inside the dimly lit store, the air was thick with the scent of burned electronics and secrets. The owner, a young man named Leo, nervously twirled a lock of his greasy hair around his finger as they questioned him. His eyes darted around the room, as if searching for an escape. Sam's no-nonsense demeanor and Martinez's calm persistence finally broke through the facade. Leo revealed that the devices had been sold to a mysterious group that operated through an encrypted, invitation-only dark web forum. They were known for trading in surveillance footage, and they paid handsomely for it. With the dawn of a new day, the town was slowly coming to grips with the reality of their situation. Whispers grew into full-blown conversations as residents gathered at the local diner, trading theories and sightings of the elusive watcher. The tension was palpable, a stark contrast to the usual morning chatter about weather and weekend plans. Back at Rachel's house, Emma found an anonymous bouquet of flowers on the doorstep, each petal meticulously chosen to match the colors of her favorite sweater. A chill ran down her spine as she realized the watcher had not only found her but was intimately aware of her personal life. Rachel, noticing her distress, suggested they visit a local IT expert named Alex to help bolster their digital defenses. Alex, a young woman with piercing blue eyes and a mischievous smile, greeted them warmly. Her apartment was a fortress of computers and screens, a stark contrast to the serene garden outside. As they spoke, Emma noticed the subtle nods and glances shared between Rachel and Alex. It dawned on her that Rachel had known about the dark web before this nightmare had unfolded. Rachel confessed that she'd had her own brush with the digital shadows, but she'd managed to stay one step ahead of the watchful eyes. Alex agreed to help them navigate the treacherous digital terrain and track down the source of the anonymous gifts. Meanwhile, Sam and Martinez had infiltrated the dark web network. It was a labyrinth of encrypted messages and hidden forums, where users lurked behind pseudonyms and avatars. They discovered that the Watcher was not just a man but a network of individuals, all feeding into a larger scheme. The mastermind behind it all was known only as the Puppeteer. They watched in horror as video feeds from unsuspecting households played out in real time, their privacy violated and exploited. Their cover almost blown, Sam and Martinez managed to trace the network's transactions to a warehouse on the outskirts of town. As they approached the nondescript building, their hearts raced, not knowing what, or who, they'd find inside. Emma, Rachel, and Alex, armed with newfound knowledge and determination, decided to set a trap for the Watcher. Using Emma's routine as bait, they hoped to draw him out and catch him in the act. Rachel's living room was transformed into a digital command center, with cameras and sensors hidden in every nook and cranny. The tension grew as the hours ticked by. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional beep of a device. Suddenly, a shadow fell across the living room floor, and they watched in real time as the front door slowly creaked open. Rachel's hand hovered over a silent alarm, her eyes glued to the screen. At the warehouse, Sam and Martinez found themselves surrounded by screens displaying the lives of the town's residents. The Puppeteer's control room was a symphony of fear and voyeurism. As they moved closer to the center, they heard the faint sound of someone typing rapidly. They turned the corner, guns drawn, only to find a teenager, eyes glazed over with a mix of terror and fascination. He was a pawn, a local kid who'd been coerced into this twisted game. The real Puppeteer remained elusive, always one step ahead. The teenager claimed to know nothing of the man who'd paid him in Bitcoin for his services. The detectives had stumbled upon a cog in the machine, but the mastermind was still in the shadows. As the clock struck midnight, Rachel's house remained untouched. The gifts had stopped, and the tension began to ease. But in the quiet of the night, a soft click echoed through the room. Rachel's laptop screen flickered, and a message appeared, taunting them, "I'm always watching." The episode ends with the realization that the battle is far from over. The Watcher had known they were being watched and had grown bolder, turning their own surveillance against them. The line between reality and the digital world had blurred, and the hunted had become the hunters. The town of Whispering Willows would never be the same again. The credits rolled over the darkened screen, leaving the audience with a chilling sense of anticipation for what lurked in the shadows of episode 4. The Watcher's eyes remained fixed on the screen, a twisted smile playing on his lips. He knew that the game had only just begun. At night, Emma sits at her laptop, the blue screen casting an eerie glow on her worried face. She types furiously, scrolling through archives of the local newspaper's website. The town's name, Whispering Willows, seems to pulse ominously with each keystroke. Emma's voice, "I knew there had to be a connection. Something that linked that man to all of this." Emma sits at her kitchen table, surrounded by coffee cups and stacks of old newspaper articles. The morning light filters through the cracked blinds, revealing dark circles under her eyes. Emma's voice, I hadn't slept much. The feeling of being watched was like a weight on my chest, keeping me from drawing a full breath. Detective Sam Harris sits in his office, surrounded by case files and notes. He looks up as his partner, Officer Martinez, enters with a tray of coffee. Martinez says, hey, boss. You're burning the midnight oil again. Harris sighs, can't help it. This watcher case has me stumped. Martinez says, well, maybe this will help. Sets down a file, found something on the dark web. Harris opens the file, his eyes widening as he scans the information. Emma's phone rings, jolting her from her thoughts. She answers it tentatively. Emma says hello. Harris' voice, Emma, it's Detective Harris. We need to talk. Emma opens the door to a concerned-looking Detective Harris. Harris says, Emma, we found something. Something big. Harris sits across from Emma, his expression grim as he explains the dark web connection. Harris says this isn't just about your encounter. This goes deeper. Emma, stunned, what do you mean? Harris says your stalker is part of a network that sells surveillance footage. Emma whispers, my God. Emma and Rachel sit on the couch, the latter's eyes glued to her phone screen. Rachel nervously, this can't be a coincidence. Emma swallows hard. We need to find out more about Linda. Maybe it's all connected. Emma and Rachel dig through a dusty box of Rachel's family history. Rachel holds up a newspaper clipping and says, look, here she is, Linda. She disappeared over 30 years ago. Emma, while examining the photo, says the resemblance. It's uncanny. Emma is alone, her eyes scanning through more articles on Linda's disappearance. Emma's voice, I felt like I was looking into a mirror from the past. The same fear, the same eyes, searching for answers. Rachel leads Emma down a creaky staircase to a cluttered basement. Rachel whispers, this is where we found the device in the wall. Emma shines a flashlight around the room, and their eyes fall on a hidden door. Emma says, what's in there? Rachel swallows, I don't know. They push open the door to reveal a small, damp room with a single chair and a wall covered in newspaper clippings about Linda's disappearance. Emma whispers, this is insane. Rachel says it's like someone's been watching us all along. Emma lies in bed, the room dimly lit by her phone screen. She reads through the messages from the online forum. Emma's voice, they all had stories. Stories of fear and violation. And it all led back to Linda. Harris pores over the case files, a picture of Linda on his desk. Harris's voice, the watcher wasn't just a stalker. He was a ghost from the past, haunting the present. Rachel receives a notification on her laptop. She opens it to find a video of Emma in her bedroom, fast asleep. Rachel screams, Emma. Emma rushes in, her heart racing. Rachel points to the screen. Rachel frantically says, look, it's you. Emma horrified, how? We're not even connected to the internet here. Harris' phone rings, the screen displaying Rachel's name. Harris answers, Rachel, what's going on? Rachel's voice, it's on my laptop. He's watching us. The video cuts out, and the screen goes black. Rachel's hand shakes as she closes the laptop. Emma to Rachel, we have to go to the police. Harris and Martinez watch the video footage in disbelief. Martinez says this isn't just about selling footage anymore. It's personal. Harris nods. We need to find this guy before he escalates. Harris questions a suspect from the local tech group. Harris says, we know you're involved in this. Who's your beer? Suspect nervously. I don't know his name. He's just a client. Harris slams hand on table. Tell me what you do know. The suspect cracks and gives up the name of the shadowy client. Emma and Rachel huddle together, listening to the rain outside. Emma whispers, we're going to get through this. Rachel sobs, what if we don't? Emma and Rachel sit in the hidden room, surrounded by Linda's clippings. Emma says we can't let fear control us. We have to keep looking. Rachel nods, for Linda. Harris receives a call from an anonymous tipster with information about the shadowy client. Harris's voice, this could be our breakthrough. Emma finds a hidden compartment behind one of the clippings. Inside is an old, tattered diary. Emma whispers, Rachel, look. They open the diary, and Emma reads aloud. Emma's voice, dear diary, I met him again today. He says he won't stop until he finds what he's looking for. Harris and Martinez trace the call to a local abandoned warehouse. Harris to Martinez, this could be where he's holding the stolen footage. Let's go. The detectives cautiously navigate through the darkness, flashlights illuminating the dusty floor. Martinez whispers, boss, over here. They find a makeshift control room with monitors displaying various parts of town. Harris whispers this is his base of operations. Emma and Rachel read through the diary, piecing together Linda's story. Rachel gasps he was looking for something she had. Emma turns page. But what? Harris and Martinez find a hidden hard drive, labeled Linda. Harris whispers this could be it. The diary reveals that Linda had found evidence of a town secret, something dark and hidden. Emma whispers we need to get this to Detective Harris. The detectives watch as the hard drive uploads the information onto their computer. Martinez whispers, "Boss, you're not going to believe this." Emma and Rachel sneak out of the house, clutching the diary. Emma's voice, "We were getting closer, but the game wasn't over yet." Harris reads through the diary, his eyes widening with each page. Harris whispers, "The Watcher. It's all connected." The detectives hear footsteps approaching. Harris whispers, "We're not alone." Emma and Rachel sprint through the rain-soaked streets, the diary held tightly between them. Rachel panting, "We are almost there." The door bursts open, and the Watcher steps into the light, holding a knife. Watcher says, "You've been poking where you shouldn't." The detectives draw their weapons, but the Watcher has vanished. Harris whispers he's been watching us too. The scene ends with the Watcher standing in the shadows of Rachel's house, watching the detective's car pull up outside. His eyes gleam with a twisted sense of satisfaction. Watcher's voice, "This isn't over. It's just the beginning." The town of Whispering Willows is shrouded in an eerie silence, the kind that only comes after a storm of secrets has blown through. The sun is a mere sliver in the sky, hinting at the early dawn, as Emma and Rachel, still shaken by the revelations of the night before, stand outside Rachel's house, staring at the padlocked basement door. The wind whispers through the willow trees, carrying with it a sense of foreboding that seems almost palpable. The silence is broken by the distant wail of a siren, a sound that has become all too familiar in recent days. Emma, mid-20s, determined, clutches a steaming mug of tea, her eyes red-rimmed from a sleepless night. Rachel, late 20s, usually bubbly but now subdued, sits opposite her, her gaze flitting nervously around the room. The TV flickers with the local news, broadcasting a warning about the ongoing stalker case. Emma, voice shaking, "I can't believe it. That room. All those newspaper clippings." Rachel says, "I know. It's like he's been watching us for our entire lives." Detective Sam Harris, 40s, seasoned, with a no-nonsense demeanor, sifts through a stack of cold case files, a furrow etched deep into his brow. His partner, Officer Martinez, 30s, sharp-eyed and tech-savvy, enters with a USB drive. Detective Harris, without looking up, says, "You found something, Martinez?" Officer Martinez says these are the records from the dark web forum we infiltrated. Buyers and sellers of the surveillance footage. There's a pattern here, Sam. It's all centered around one user, the observer. The duo exchanges a knowing glance, and Harris nods grimly. Detective Harris says, "Looks like we've got ourselves a stalker with a vendetta." In the morning, the metal door of the storage unit creaks open, revealing a treasure trove of dust-covered VHS tapes. The air is stale, heavy with the scent of decaying cardboard and forgotten memories. Detective Harris whispers, "This is it. The man's life's work." They set up a makeshift viewing station, an old TV, VCR combo on a rickety table. The first tape they play shows grainy, black and white footage of Rachel's house from years ago. The camera pans over to a young girl playing in the yard. "Rachel." EMMA gasps, "That's Rachel." Rachel's eyes widen in horror as she watches her younger self on the small screen. Rachel whispers, "What does he want with me?" The second tape shows a young couple moving into a house. The camera lingers on the mother's face, and Emma's heart skips a beat as she realizes it's her own mother. Emma, with voice trembling, "That's my parents." The tape cuts to various moments in Emma's childhood, her mother's loving gaze, her father's gentle hands. The Watcher's presence is felt, but unseen. Harris' hand hovers over the stop button, his expression a mix of pity and resolve. Detective Harris softly says, "We need to see this through, Emma, for everyone's sake." Emma nods, her eyes never leaving the flickering images of her past. The detectives have watched hours of tapes, each more disturbing than the last. They find one labeled Linda. The footage is from the night she disappeared, showing her last moments with a man who matches the Watcher's description. Emma and Rachel watch the footage, Rachel's hand covering her mouth, Emma's eyes brimming with tears. Rachel whispers, "It's him. It's definitely him." The detectives look at each other, the gravity of the situation weighing heavy on their shoulders. Detective Harris grimly says, "This isn't just about the dark web anymore. This is personal." At night in Rachel's bedroom, Rachel's behavior becomes more erratic. She locks herself in her room, ignoring Emma's concerned knocks. Emma, voice muffled by the door, "Rachel." What's going on? Rachel voice tight. Just give me some space. Emma lies awake in the guest room, her thoughts racing. She hears Rachel's door open and close, the sound of soft footsteps creeping down the hallway. She decides to investigate. Emma finds Rachel sitting in front of the TV, watching the old VHS tapes on repeat. Rachel's eyes are vacant, her mind clearly elsewhere. Emma looks concerned. Rachel, what are you doing? Rachel snaps out of it. I don't know. I just had to see. The detectives uncover a hidden compartment filled with more tapes, all labeled with names of the town's residents. The final tape is marked the reveal. They play the tape, expecting more footage. Instead, they find a video diary of the Watcher, detailing his obsession with Rachel and his plans for her. Watcher's voice, you're mine, Rachel. I've watched you grow, and now it's time for you to take your rightful place beside me. Emma and Rachel watch in horror as the Watcher's twisted intentions are laid bare. Rachel starts to sob quietly. Rachel whispers, why me? Detective Harris' expression hardens as he hears Rachel's name. Detective Harris looks determined. We're going to find the sicko and put him away for good. The tape cuts to Emma's mother, pregnant with Emma, talking to the Watcher. The Watcher's face is never shown, but his voice is chillingly familiar. Watcher's voice, I've been watching over you, too, little one. Your mother and I had a special bond, you know. Emma's eyes widen in horror as she realizes the true extent of the Watcher's obsession. Emma whispers, that's my dad's voice. The tension in the house is palpable as Rachel and Emma try to piece together the puzzle. Rachel finds an old photo album and starts flipping through the pages. Rachel voice trembling, Emma, look at this. Emma sees a picture of Rachel with her mother, both of them smiling. Rachel points to the date scribbled in the corner. Rachel swallows hard. This was taken the day before she disappeared. The detectives watch the final tape in silence, the truth about Linda's disappearance slowly unfolding. The Watcher's voice fills the room. Watcher's voice, I knew her better than anyone. She was always looking for something more. So, I gave it to her. Emma's eyes fill with tears as Rachel continues to explain her mother's friendship with Rachel's aunt, Linda. Rachel voice cracking, Linda was like a second mother to me after my parents died. She was so kind, so full of life. The tape cuts to the Watcher's basement, showing a shrine dedicated to Rachel and Linda. The camera zooms in on a newspaper article about Linda's disappearance, with the headline The Lost Sisters. Detective Harris and Officer Martinez share a horrified look. Detective Harris to Martinez, we need to get a search warrant for Rachel's house, now. The house phone starts to ring, echoing through the empty halls. Rachel jumps, her eyes wide with fear. Rachel whispers, he's here. Emma grabs Rachel's hand, her grip tight. Emma firmly says, we're not alone anymore. The once tranquil streets of Whispering Willows are now a canvas of suspicion and fear, painted by the shadowy figure known only as the Watcher. As dawn breaks over the town, Emma, Rachel, and Detective Sam Harris sit in Rachel's living room, the remnants of a sleepless night etched on their faces. The room is a halo of yellow light from the single lamp flickering in the corner, casting shadows that dance along the walls as they discuss their latest findings. Emma nervously says, Sam, I don't know what to make of this. Why would he have blueprints of every house? Detective Harris studying the blueprints. It's like he's been planning this for years. Rachel swallows hard. My family used to work for Mr. Kroll before I was born. The name hangs in the air like an unspoken curse. Mr. Kroll, the town's wealthy recluse whose mansion looms over the community like a silent sentinel, has always been a man of whispers and rumors. Rachel's voice trembles as she shares her secret. Rachel whispers, my mother was his housekeeper. She said he was strange. After she left, she made me swear never to speak of him again. Detective Harris concerned, what do you mean, Rachel? Her eyes drift to the floor, the memories heavy on her mind. Rachel softly, he had a fascination with the people in town. He'd ask her about everyone's lives, their routines. It was unsettling. The detective nods, piecing the puzzle together. Detective Harris serious, Rachel, I need to know everything you can remember about Mr. Kroll. It might help us understand what he's after. Her eyes widen with realization, and she nods solemnly. The camera pans through the opulent mansion, dust motes dancing in the beams of light that pierce through the heavy curtains. In the heart of the room, Mr. Kroll sits in a high-backed chair, a glass of whiskey in hand, watching the town through a telescope. His eyes are cold, his smile twisted. Rows of monitors flicker with the lives of Whispering Willows inhabitants. A young man in a black hoodie sits at a control panel, his fingers dancing over the keys. Young man whispers to himself. They're getting closer. He glances at the blueprints scattered on the table, a grin playing on his lips. Detective Harris and Officer Martinez sift through the evidence, the gravity of the situation weighing on their shoulders. Detective Harris frustrated. We've got to get a warrant for Kroll's place. He's our best lead. Officer Martinez nods, already drafting the paperwork. The young man's grin widens as he watches the detectives on one of the monitors. Young man into a headset. They're on to us, Mr. Kroll. What do we do? The old man's voice is a hiss through the headset. Amar. Kroll. Stay calm. We'll deal with it. Rachel's confession has painted a picture of a man who's been manipulating the town from the shadows for decades. Emma can't shake the feeling that she's being watched. Emma to Rachel. I don't think we should stay here. It's not safe. Rachel firmly. We can't let him win. We need to end this. Detective Harris agrees, his jaw set with determination. Detective Harris to Rachel. Your courage is admirable, but we'll handle it from here. The detective's office buzzes with activity as they prepare to confront Mr. Kroll. Rachel's revelation has turned the investigation on its head. Detective Harris to Martinez. Call for backup. We're going in. The young man, revealed to be the Watcher, watches the town's residents with a disturbing intensity. Watcher whispers, You're all just puppets, dancing for me. Emma and Rachel wait, their hearts pounding, as the detectives prepare to execute the warrant. The Watcher's eyes flick to the monitors showing the police station. He smirks. Watcher to himself. Let the final act begin. The police burst through the door, guns drawn. Watcher calmly. Hello, gentlemen. Can I help you? Emma and Rachel hold their breaths, waiting for news from the stackout. Detective Harris firmly. We have a warrant to search this property. Stand down. The tension is palpable as the detectives sweep through the mansion, each room more unsettling than the last. They find a library filled with books on surveillance and psychology, a trophy room with newspaper clippings of the townsfolk's most intimate moments, and finally, the control room. The Watcher is calmly typing away at the computer, seemingly unfazed by their presence. Detective Harris angrily. What is all of this? Watcher smiling. This is where I keep an eye on my projects. The house phone rings, making the women jump. Rachel answers, her hand shaking. Rachel into the phone. Hello, Detective Harris to the Watcher. Where's Mr. Kroll? The Watcher's smile widens, and he gestures to the monitors. Watcher whispers, He's always watching. The voice on the other end of the line sends a chill down Rachel's spine. Amar. Kroll says, Hello, Rachel. I've been expecting you. Detective Harris whispers to Martinez, We need to find him, now. The detectives split up, searching the mansion's sprawling corridors. Meanwhile, Rachel and Emma watch the monitors in horror, realizing that Mr. Kroll has been orchestrating the surveillance ring. Emma stunned. It's like he's been watching us all our lives. The detectives find themselves in a game of cat and mouse with the elusive Mr. Kroll. His voice echoes through the mansion's intercom system, taunting them. Amar. Kroll. You think you can unravel my web so easily? Detective Harris into his radio. We need to find a way to shut this down. The Watcher watches the chaos with amusement. Watcher to Rachel. You see, Rachel. This is what power feels like. Rachel. Enraged, you're sick. The episode crescendos as the detectives converge on Mr. Kroll's hidden lair, a chamber filled with screens and control panels. He sits in a chair, surrounded by his puppets, a king in his own twisted kingdom. Amar. Kroll. To the detectives, you're too late. The town is mine. The standoff is tense, Rachel's eyes pleading for a peaceful resolution. Rachel. Desperate, why are you doing this, Amar? Kroll. Laughing because I can. Because I enjoy the entertainment. The lights flicker, and the screens go dark. Rachel has sabotaged the system from the basement, giving the detectives the upper hand. Detective Harris triumphantly. You're under arrest, Kroll. As Mr. Kroll is led away in handcuffs, Rachel and Emma share a look of relief and horror. Rachel. To Emma. It's over. The town begins to breathe again as the truth unfolds. The Watcher is apprehended, and the town's secrets spill out like blood from a wound. Rachel's bravery has saved them all. Emma. Hugging Rachel, thank you. The monitors flicker back to life, and the Watcher's eyes widen. The game isn't over yet. Watcher into the camera, but the show goes on. The 7th episode of Whispering Willows opens with Emma, visibly shaken, lying in bed, the early morning light barely penetrating the curtains. Rachel's words from the previous night echo in her mind. A vengeful spirit is said to haunt this town. protecting it from those who wish to do harm. The room is still, save for the faint ticking of the antique clock on the bedside table. Suddenly, the curtains flutter open on their own accord, revealing a thick mist that has enveloped the town, shrouding it in a supernatural silence. The eerie quiet is broken by the chilling ring of her old-fashioned telephone. With trembling hands, Emma answers, expecting another unsettling message from the watcher. Instead, she hears a faint, ethereal whisper, "You're not safe." The line goes dead, leaving her heart pounding and her mind racing. Detective Sam Harris and his partner, Officer Martinez, review the blueprints they've seized from Rachel's house, the lines and notes scribbled in red ink seemingly pulsating with malice. They know they're dealing with a mastermind who has meticulously studied the town and its inhabitants. Meanwhile, Rachel, whose curiosity has transformed into obsession, dives deeper into the local folklore, her eyes glued to dusty, yellowed pages of forgotten books in the town's library. Her fingers trace over a faded photograph of Linda, the lost girl whose spirit now seems to haunt their lives. Rachel's eyes widen as she discovers a page detailing a long-standing curse, a wronged soul doomed to wander the town, protecting its residents from those who dare to disturb its peace. Emma, unable to shake the feeling of being watched, decides to visit the spot where Linda was last seen. The park, once a place of joy and innocence, now looms with a palpable sense of dread. As she approaches the ancient oak tree that casts a twisted shadow over the playground, she feels a sudden coldness, as if a ghostly hand has brushed against her. A rustling of leaves whispers Linda's name. At the police station, Harris and Martinez piece together the puzzle of Mr. Kroll's life. His reclusiveness, his vast wealth, and his obsession with surveillance technology all point to a man who craves control and power over others. Yet, they find no concrete evidence linking him to the Watcher's crimes. Emma's world spirals further into the supernatural as objects in her house begin to move of their own accord. The Watcher's gifts, once meticulously placed, are now strewn about the room, as if thrown by an angry specter. Rachel, upon hearing of these occurrences, insists they perform a seance to communicate with Linda's spirit. In the dim candlelight of Rachel's living room, the two friends sit cross-legged, their palms resting on a crystal, attempting to invoke Linda's presence. The air grows heavy, and the candles flicker erratically. The crystal grows cold, then hot, and suddenly, it starts to spin, faster and faster, until it shatters. A gust of wind slams the door shut, and a piercing scream echoes through the house. They've unleashed something, but whether it's Linda's spirit or something far more sinister, they can't be sure. The Watcher, feeling the disturbance in the town's energy, grows increasingly agitated. His eyes dart around his surveillance room, the screens flickering with the ghostly images of his past victims. He knows he must act quickly to regain control before it's too late. The tension reaches a crescendo as the detectives, armed with a search warrant, approach Mr. Kroll's foreboding mansion. The once majestic building now stands as a testament to decay and isolation, a stark contrast to the pristine lawns of the surrounding neighborhood. As they step into the foyer, the air is thick with the scent of old books and dust. Inside the mansion, they find an opulent chamber, walls lined with shelves of antique tomes and artifacts, a shrine to Linda. Photographs, newspaper clippings, and handwritten notes about her line the walls, each detail meticulously catalogued. It's clear that Mr. Kroll's obsession with her has consumed his life. The Watcher, driven by an unseen force, scales the mansion's ivy-covered walls. His eyes gleam with a feral intensity as he watches the detectives from the shadows, his grip on reality slipping away. Emma and Rachel, their fear turning to determination, set out to find Linda's final resting place, hoping it will bring peace to the restless spirit. They follow a series of cryptic clues that seem to appear as if by ghostly hand, leading them to an overgrown cemetery on the outskirts of town. The confrontation at the mansion is tense. Harris and Martinez search room by room, the cobwebs and silence their only companions. Suddenly, the lights flicker, and a figure darts past them. It's the Watcher, desperate to evade capture. They give chase through the labyrinthine corridors, the spirit of Linda seemingly guiding their steps. At the cemetery, Emma feels drawn to a particular gravestone, her hand hovering over the name Linda. Rachel, her eyes filled with terror, whispers, "Emma, we have to get out of here." But Emma can't leave without answers. The chase through the mansion culminates in a dramatic confrontation on the rooftop. The Watcher, cornered, reveals that he's been compelled to do Mr. Kroll's bidding, his mind twisted by the power of the vengeful spirit. Harris and Martinez manage to subdue him just as Mr. Kroll appears, his face a mask of rage and despair. As the detectives interrogate Mr. Kroll, it becomes clear that his obsession with Linda is not just about control or power. It's about love, twisted and unrequited, that has festered into madness. The spirit's wrath is a manifestation of his guilt and regret. Emma and Rachel, at the gravestone, perform an impromptu ritual to lay Linda's spirit to rest. Tears stream down their faces as they speak the words of peace, their voices trembling with hope and fear. The mansion, once a bastion of darkness, now seems to breathe a sigh of relief as the watcher is taken away in handcuffs. Mr. Kroll, defeated, confesses his role in the surveillance ring, his obsession with Linda driving him to manipulate others. The early morning sun casts a warm glow over the quaint town of Whispering Willows, a stark contrast to the dark secrets that have been unraveled over the past 7 days. The leaves rustle gently, carrying whispers of the horrors that have haunted its residents, especially Emma, who had hoped for a quiet, restful staycation. She and Rachel sit in Rachel's cozy living room, surrounded by the remnants of their frantic search for answers. Newspaper clippings, hand-drawn maps, and scribbled notes litter the coffee table. The room is thick with the scent of burnt coffee and the weight of unspoken fears. Emma's hand shakes as she holds a brittle photograph of a young girl, a twin image of Rachel. "Linda," she murmurs, her eyes tracing the contours of the smiling face that has become all too familiar. Rachel nods solemnly, her eyes red-rimmed from a sleepless night spent piecing together the tragic puzzle of her town's past. Detective Sam Harris and Officer Martinez arrive at the station, their expressions grim. The evidence points to Mr. Kroll, the enigmatic recluse whose mansion looms over the town like a silent sentinel. They review the blueprints found in Rachel's house, each line and notation speaking of a meticulous and twisted mind. But something is still missing, the motive that has driven the Watcher to such extremes. Meanwhile, the Watcher, whose real name is revealed to be Marcus, paces in the dimly lit basement of his childhood home. The walls are adorned with newspaper articles, photos, and hand-scrawled letters to Linda, his long-lost twin sister. His obsession has consumed him, blurring the lines between reality and the spectral world he believes she inhabits. He clutches a locket, the only tangible connection to the sister he never knew. Inside, a faded picture of Linda smiles back at him, his driving force for vengeance. Emma and Rachel delve deeper into the archives of the local library, searching for any clue that might explain the Watcher's behavior. As they sift through dusty tomes and yellowed documents, Rachel stumbles upon a diary entry from Linda, detailing her fear of an unseen presence that had been following her. The words echo Emma's recent experiences, and Rachel can't help but feel a shiver run down her spine. Back at the station, Harris and Martinez receive a tip about a suspicious figure seen near Rachel's house. They rush to the scene, only to find it eerily quiet. But as they enter the house, they notice something. Miss Rachel's favorite sweater lies discarded on the floor, a chair knocked over. Panic sets in as they realize Rachel has been taken. In the basement, Rachel regains consciousness, her head pounding. She's bound to a chair, the cold concrete biting into her skin. Marcus stands before her, his eyes wild with desperation. "You're just like her," he whispers. "I knew you were the one." Rachel's heart races as she realizes she's been taken by mistake, a pawn in a twisted game of ghosts and vengeance. Emma, now fueled by a newfound resolve, finds Rachel's research into local folklore. The tale of a vengeful spirit that protects the town from harm resonates within her. Could it be that Linda's spirit has been guiding her all along? The pieces of the puzzle begin to fall into place. At the mansion, Harris and Martinez uncover a hidden room filled with surveillance equipment and stacks of VHS tapes. Each tape reveals a different facet of the Watcher's life: his lonely existence, his descent into madness, and his unwavering belief that Linda's spirit guides him. A single tear rolls down Harris's cheek as he watches the heartbreaking footage of a lost soul searching for answers. Emma, armed with her newfound knowledge, confronts Marcus in the basement. The air is thick with the scent of mold and the tension of unspoken truths. "You're wrong," she says, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Linda isn't a ghost. She's been watching over us, trying to stop you." Marcus's grip on Rachel tightens, his eyes narrowed in disbelief. The detectives burst in, guns drawn, but Emma holds up a hand to stay them. She needs to reach Marcus, to save Rachel and set Linda's spirit free. "You're not alone," she says softly. "Linda is with us." Rachel's eyes widen as she feels a gentle, reassuring presence beside her. The watcher's expression falters, his eyes flickering to the corner of the room where Linda's spirit is revealed to him. A moment of clarity pierces the madness as he recognizes the truth in Emma's words. His grip on Rachel loosens, and she gasps for air as the ropes fall away. Marcus collapses to his knees, the weight of his obsession crushing him. "I just wanted to find out what happened to her," he sobbed. "I wanted to save her." Linda's spirit, no longer bound by anger, reaches out to her brother, offering a ghostly embrace. Rachel, now free, watches in awe as the siblings are reunited in a moment of bittersweet sorrow. The town of Whispering Willows begins to heal as the truth about Linda's spirit and the Watcher's obsession comes to light. Rachel moves back into her house, the basement now a testament to the past rather than a prison of fear. The Watcher, now fully understood, is taken into custody, his mind a tragic tapestry of grief and delusion. In the final moments, Emma stands in her living room, the same spot where her week of terror began. She looks at the newly repaired window, the shards of glass replaced with unblemished panes. A soft breeze carries the whispers of the willow trees outside, and for the first time in a week, she feels a sense of peace. Rachel, her hand in Emma's, smiles, the bond between them stronger than ever. As the credits roll, the camera pans out to reveal Mr. Kroll's mansion, the shadowy client's lair. Inside, the old man watches the news of the Watcher's capture with a hint of satisfaction. But his gaze lingers on the image of Linda, and his smile fades. The final shot is of the locket, now in the evidence locker at the police station. Linda's smiling face a silent accusation of his own part in the town's dark history. Thank you so much for joining me on this cinematic journey. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Have you experienced a spine-chilling horror that left you trembling? Share your terrifying tale with us by emailing nightmarenetwork@hotmail.com, and we'd be thrilled to feature it on our platform. Until next time, happy movie watching.